All right, let's finish up our first floor walls here. I think all we had left was from the last video was this fireplace wall. And the best way to deal with uh, angled walls is to put you in a reference plane to where where one of the angles go. And you do that here off the architecture tab right here, reference plane. Click that, draw it in, dimension it back to where it should be located at, and then you can lock it or pin that in place. And then draw the line, draw your wall. To, to, let's get over here. It's a 4-inch partition, chipboard exterior side. And so I draw it at the appropriate angle. Okay, I'm not worried about the length yet or the location. So I get it drawn at the right angle and then move it up into place and pick that corner of at the core where the stud and the chipboard meet. And then move that up. And of course, you're going to drop it right there, but I'm not going to drop it on top of my existing wall. Okay. And then do an extension down to there and then pin it and lock it in place. And that's the easiest way to deal with angled walls. Sometimes don't try to draw it in the correct place, draw it and then move it. Okay. And that should, excuse me, that should take care of most of our interior wall things. Now let's go to our basement. Um, I was working off the top of foundation wall level, and you're going to find in a lot of the things that when we're modeling is we're playing with our view range. And so you come over here and edit that, and I some of them I may show you, some of them I may not show you. But if you're on a level and you're not seeing what you need to see, you need to adjust your view range and your cut plane so that you can actually see what it is that you're working with. Okay. All right. So the concrete walls, excuse me, most of them are an 8-inch thick wall, as you can see on the plans. And they're going to go from our top of footing level up to our top of foundation wall level. And the way I like to draw them is I'll just draw them in rough shape, and then I align and move and dimension and lock them in place. I find that easier than trying to actually draw them in the right location. Now that's just me. You may find it different. That's okay. But with this one, you got to really watch your dimensions on this because um, these most of these walls coming around the exterior will line up with your first floor. So you can set your underlay for this level as the first floor plan. But if you notice here on this rear wall, they do not line up exactly. Okay. And then down here along the garage, they don't line up, and around the front porch, they don't line up. And the reason for that is our slabs that will be placed for the porches have to rest on the foundation wall back against the house. Okay. So, oh, that's my stone wall there. Okay, I was wondering, what is that line? Look at there. So this front wall, this left wall, the rear wall down to this point, and the right side wall coming down, those will line up with your first floor and with the grid lines that we've created. But across the garage here around the front, those will be different. Okay, and you can put those in. That's pretty easy to do. Now then, for uh, the porches and the garage, these have shorter walls, and if you look on sheet number 4, it shows the grade beam, and I'm going with the dimensions off the grade beam detail of a minimum height of 2'6" for these other walls. And here's the best way to deal with those: is go ahead and draw your walls. And I created another level, grade beam top of footing level, which is 2'6" below the top of foundation wall. And I drew my my foundation walls for these things. Okay, and draw the wall straight out so that it joins. Okay, I did that for the garage and on my front porch. Now, there's an error in the drawings that I've picked up. If you look here at the front porch, if you look at your drawing, it shows a grade beam detail here in this location. But when you look at this and you think about it, okay, so I've got these garage walls that are only 2'6" tall. If I have a change here, so this is 2'6" coming around, but then it changed again here on the paper drawings. So it didn't make sense. And it had this one as a full height wall. Excuse me. So what let's do is we're going to put a grade beam here in this location, but a regular wall across the front of the porch. And then of course this wall section right here is 1'2" thick. Okay, so you'll have to create another wall for that. So you go ahead and you draw these walls in at the correct height and the correct level. Okay, and now you can do this either before you put the footings in or after you put the footings in. Doesn't matter either way. But when you look at the grade beam detail there on sheet 4, you've got two different details. One is where the grade beam is perpendicular to the full height wall, and the other is where it's parallel to the full height wall. Okay. What you'll do is you'll take your wall and you'll put a break in the middle of it. And then, because if I just did a footing under this wall, the footing goes the whole length of the wall. And you can't drag it back shorter than the wall. So what we'll do is we'll use a split element and we'll put a break in it. And okay, I'll put it here so it's easy to see. Okay. And now our dimensions off the grade beam detail gives me 4 feet off of the existing wall. So I want to dimension how come that is not picking up? Well, that's just weird. It's not picking up my wall dimension. That's weird. Anyway, so I want to get that down so that it's 4 feet off of the existing wall. There we go. I don't know why that's picking up. Anyway, now I can extend that one on down. Okay. Now my reason for that is when I put my footing in, I can do a footing only under that one wall section. And you'll have to duplicate and edit your wall footing to get the right size. Okay. And so then it puts it in. But now if you look back at that detail for the grade beam, we have to take this section that has no footing under it, and we have to change the base offset and go down 8 inches. And I'll show you here in 3D what I'm talking about. There we go. Okay. So here's my regular foundation wall with a footing, and then here's the grade beam section, and so the bottom of it should be at the bottom of the footing. Okay. All right. Back to here. So you've got all those that you'll be putting in. these two column pads here, you'll use an isolated footing. To create those widths, you'll have to duplicate it and set the sizes correctly. And it should be, at the top of footing level. It's still, the same, but you'll put those in. All right, for this footing, we got to put in the stairway walls first. So I created another level and I called it basement. And this is my top of basement floor. And then I put in this wall, which has drywall on both sides, but I did a wrap. It's my 4.5-inch petition with an end wrap. And so I draw it in place first and get the length of it. And the dimension is different from what it shows in the drawings because when we dimension a wrapped wall, it dimensions to the end of the drywall as opposed to the end of the stud. So I can do that and put it in place. Now, these two walls are, excuse me, 1.5-inch furring against the concrete with 1/2-inch drywall on the outside. And so I can put those two in place and get them locked and dimensioned, okay? Check yourself because they should line up directly under your first floor wall, okay? All right, so back to here. So I've got my basement wall here, which has a footing under it. So if I come back to here, if I just use my wall foundation tool here, it puts that foundation right at the bottom of the stud wall. And the stud wall should be sitting on top of the concrete slab as shown on sheet number 2. So that, and there's no way to offset it down. So that won't work. So what you'll have to do is use a rectangular footing, an isolated footing. And I made it 17 feet long and it's 24 wide, 12 inches thick. And then you can place it and rotate it and then move it and align it into place and lock it in place. Okay, so let's go back and so there it is. And there is a gap in between that. I'll go to my section view and show you. So here's my basement stud wall and there's the footing that will be under it. Okay, now let's see. When we get to our drawings, we have to make a change here because we don't put hatch and solid lines on footings. So we'll do it on the, I think, top of foundation wall, maybe where we end up drawing information to create our, excuse me, our paper drawings from. I'll try and remember, I think we'll use that. But what we'll do, here's a workaround. We'll go over here to our properties and go to visibility graphics. And we want to edit that. And let's scroll down to structural foundations. And I want to do an override on this. So I'm going to override my line type. And I'm going to go down. I'm going to use hidden 3/8 inch. And then for the pattern, I'm going to turn visibility of the patterns off. So I don't want any hatching on that. And I just want dash lines for the footings. And I'm leaving the cuts the same way they are. So those things will show up in my section views. Okay. So you can see the changes made here. Okay. We still want concrete pattern on the wall. Okay, that looks weird. I see why that looks weird. My view scale, I never changed that. Let's go to 1/4 inch. That looks better. Okay. And so that looks kind of good for most of my foundation stuff. I think that looks good. I'm going to pause this video and then check some things and then come back with another one.